Nat Moss, thank you so much for sparing a little bit of your hectic schedule to come and chat with me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So we kind of know each other, I don't know, been aware of each other for a couple of years. You did, obviously, I write books, and you did a couple of the book subjects. I see you do a lot of kind of local charity work. You're kind of more prolific now on your social media, which is nice to see. But before I kind of go into all that, Nat, so are you a Groville girl?
Yeah, I was born and brought up in Groville.
Right, 37-year-old, so you're kind of, proper Middlesbrough girl. So
yeah, definitely.
Your work is pretty incredible. I'm not just saying this, like...
Oh, thanks very much.
I mean, that is as good as it gets, and there's a lot of people said that to me as well.
Oh, that's lovely to know. Thanks very much.
No, it is staggering. I mean, I'm no art expert, but... I've seen obviously you did Lee Duffy, you did the Paul Sykes, You've done, I've seen so much of your work, but after I've seen other, and I can kind of judge like the level. You are probably literally as, I don't know, probably as good as, in my head, as good as it gets, but where did it all start from? Like, obviously, I want to ask you, can it be taught? Are you born like that? But where did it all start from, Nat?
I don't know, really. To be honest with you, I've just always drawn. Like, from being a little kid, I've just always had pencils and just constantly I used to go around the house when I was tiny and just draw things like my mum's ornaments that were, on the mantelpiece. I'd just draw things from around the house, and I always used to be really critical of myself, even as a little kid though. I would be constantly saying, that's not good enough, I need to do better, and I always wanted to try and get better and learn. I think my drive from it, to be honest, it's kind of like, it's kind of bad, but it's nice in a way. Now I'm older, I can look back and see that was actually criticism that's helped me. So I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, and my dad used to have pigeons, and it was in the spring, and he used to breed his pigeons, and they would have loads of babies. And because I knew my dad loved pigeons and they were his world, he used to race them, I went into his pigeon loft and I sat there on the floor, and I was just looking at this little baby bird in the nest. And I got my pencils out, and I just sat there and I drew it. And I remembered looking at it even at that age and thinking, wow, I've done such a good job. So I was really excited to give it to my dad, thinking he'd be really impressed. And I'd gone over and I'd give him it, and he kind of started laughing at it, and I was quite took back because of how proud I felt of it at the time. And I just said to him, do you like it? And he laughed. And then I said to him, do you think it's good enough to go in a frame? And he just laughed and said, when you get older, you look at that picture and you ask yourself if that's good enough to go in a frame. And he kind of took the mick out of it a little bit. And I just remember feeling really, really hurt at that time, and really angry with him. And I remember going up to my bedroom, being really upset about it, and thinking, I'll show you one day. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to learn to draw better, and I'm going to show you. And at the time, it seemed really awful of him to do that. And to be honest, looking at, I would always be really positive with my kids, oh wow, that's brilliant. That's such a good job you've done there. And if there was parts that weren't as great, I would comment on the parts that were brilliant. So I kind of couldn't really see why he said that at the time. But to be totally honest with you, I think that looking at it now, that's probably where my drive came from. I always wanted to prove him that I could be good and that I could do well with my artwork, because I've just always wanted to do it.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, was it shocking though? Obviously, because I've seen you standing, was it kind of bad?
I haven't kept it. I don't know where it went, but I remembered looking at it as a young kid and thinking, wow, I did really well with that. That was really good. So for me to think that at such a young age, especially when other things I'd drawn, I'd actually thought, I don't like it, it's not good enough, or that doesn't look right. I was quite critical of myself even when I was young. So I just remembered being really proud of it because it was so good at that age. So I would say, for my age, it was probably really good, but because I was a child, obviously it's not going to be as great as an adult drawing it, because I think you just need experience and practice, and that's what I've done over the years to get better.
So obviously I take it you were you probably the number one artist in your school for ability?
Well, yeah, it was. A lot of the kids would be like, "Can you draw me? Can you draw me?" And I would sit in like lessons that I really hated, such as maths. I really could not just hack maths at all. I still can't, to be honest. And I think that's probably maybe why I'm more creative, because the math side of things was just never there for me at all. And even now, it's still not there. And I just think that when I was at school, a lot of the kids would come over and ask me to draw things. And I've kept my school reports as well from when I was in like infant school even. And all my reports, I always looked to see what it said in art, and it was always like really good. I had a flair for art, and like my year 6 teacher, he was so supportive. I was quite a difficult kid in school as well, and he only ever saw the best in me. And I looked at the report that he gave me, and he actually wrote, I think I've posted it on my page before, but he said he wrote in there something along the lines of, has a natural talent, exceptional talent for drawing, always has great detail in her work, and has promise for the future. And that meant a lot to me to read that.
So ask me a question. I mean, answer me this, right? Yeah. So for people watching this now on YouTube, the pictures upon pictures upon pictures of, excuse me, pardon. So the pictures that you see, that's your work. So do you just wake up and, I mean, can you be taught, or is it something like, obviously you're talking about drive and it motivates you, and that, that's what flicked your switch to kind of, if you like, kind of driven you to do that. But I mean, I think, me personally, I could do all the training in the world, and I don't think I could ever draw. How does one get to that level? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I mean, has it took you? Do you just are you still learning now? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, I think you learn every day. I mean, every single time I draw, I learn something more, and the more you do, the better you get, basically. And I do think you can be born with a love for art. Like you can maybe like tilt more to the artistic side if you're not as good in other subjects. Maybe if you're more academic, you might not really want to do the creative side of things, because your drive might be learning more things about, I don't know, science or maths, and so you might not be driven to the art side. But I do believe that like every single child, because if you look in a classroom, you see kids drawing all the time. The first thing a child does is paint and draw, and scribbling on walls and anything like that, finger paint, and they really encourage it for like sensory reasons in nurseries and stuff. And if that's how a child learns, basically, anything to do with the hands and drawing. And I just think that every child is born with the ability to do art, but I think that over time we lose it unless we've got that love for it. But I do think, like, say I sat down with you now, if you wanted to sort of learn to draw, but your heart wasn't in it, and you didn't really have the passion, it would probably be difficult for you to pick it up. But if you have never drawn anything in your life, and apart from when you were young, and now you want to start, if you were like really, really, really wanting to do it, and your heart was in it, and you were passionate about it, it can be picked up totally. It just depends how dedicated you are to wanting to learn, I think.
I mean, we were talking, and I suppose we're quite similar in the fact that I've released 22 books, got another 4 finished, and I like to be involved. I like to meet people. I've done 3 documentaries, but I've been in other bits and pieces. But meeting people and being creative is a therapy for me. And I mean, me sitting writing, I mean, I'm no longer a full-time writer anymore now. I work, but when it's a foundation for my life. I can't be done with the hangover, so I don't really bother drinking that much. Because I've got writing, and I like to interact and do positive stuff. Is it very much like that for you? I mean, do you find it therapeutic almost?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to often go off to my bedroom when I was having a tough time, because I did go through quite a tough time as a kid, and I would go up there and as an escape and just get my pencils out, and I would write poems and things and just draw and just to try and take my mind off stuff. And as I've got older, when I had my first daughter, I kind of took the back step, but it was always there. I always wanted to do it. I just didn't have the time to do it at that moment. But each time I got a little bit of spare time, I did try and do a little bit, and then it's probably been, I would say, since about 2010 that I really threw myself back into it, because I hadn't done it for quite a while, and it's very, very therapeutic. I just find that it's weird to explain it, actually. This is why I do it in paintings and drawings, but it's kind of I'll have some sort of childhood trauma in my mind, and it's on a shelf. It's the only way I can describe it, really. It's I keep them on little shelves in my head, and then every so often, do you know, when you'll just be overthinking, and all of a sudden you'll think of something that happened 10 years ago or whenever, and then it kind of falls off the shelf and lands there, and I start to think about it. So the only way for me to get it away and to get it off that shelf and out of my head is to get my pencils out. And I'll often draw and paint a lot of artworks that do go on my page that people have seen that are quite very deep and emotional, and they're the ones that I'm drawing from my shelf. I get I just get it all out onto my paper, try and put as much emotion into it. Obviously it won't be me, but it might be of a young girl, or just something that I've gone through in my past, and I'll draw it onto the paper, and then once I've done that, it's that feeling has came out, and it's on the paper, and it's gone, and then I can move on from it. It's sort of accepting it and moving on from things. That's what it helps me do. So,
in boxing, there's a term: a fighter's only good as his last fight, and the more out, the more the box, the more prolific in sorry, there's a point to this, the better they are. So imagine if you just never drew for a year, right? Obviously when boxers are being inactive, then they come back and they're not as good. So is that an artist? If you never drew for a year, when you picked up, have you ever had times where you've been an absolute nightmare and it's war when Pete Tong?
Yeah, well, it was over lockdown. See, when I don't draw, I start, like I said, it keeps my mind going. It's very similar to yourself. Stops me thinking. It gives me a focus, and it's something that when I've done it, I feel like I've achieved something. So I'm proud of myself, and that it gives me a good feeling. So there was a time over lockdown where I kind of had a bit of an art block, and I just couldn't draw, couldn't think of that. I have a notebook as well that I write my ideas down in. I might suddenly get an idea that, I could draw that, and then I'll write it down, and I'll come back to it at a later date. And even then it stopped. I just couldn't think of absolutely anything to draw, and it was a nightmare. And because I wasn't drawing, I started to feel really down, and just I wouldn't say depressed, but very, very down, and just not myself. And it took me quite a long time to get back into drawing, and it lasted for about a year. It was a total nightmare for me, because, like I said, I use art for therapy reasons, and it was just awful. And then when I did do a drawing, I finally got I'd watched a box set, and I finally got my I thought, I want to draw him. He's a character. It was Tiger King, and I thought, he's such a unusual character. I would really like to draw him. So I felt like this feeling come back. I need to get my pencils. So I'd gone and ordered some new pencils, and as soon as they came from Amazon, ripped the box open, and I'm drawing straight away. And at that moment, it was probably one of my best drawings that I'd done. So it doesn't stop you from learning. It doesn't make you worse because you haven't done it in a while. I just think that sometimes when you do come back to it, it can be a better piece because you've wanted to do it for so long and just haven't been able to.
Yeah. So obviously, as I said, people are watching the photos, the artwork, the pictures going by. There's a lot more. You know, I've seen ones that probably aren't even on here with you. You've done so many. But for instance, like, you know, these ones on the screen, your Paul Sykes, your Lee Duffy's, your Liam Gallagher's, your Robin Williams. How long does something like that take?
So because I have kids, I can't really just sit there and do my drawing for as long as I would like to.
Yeah.
Once I start a drawing, I do not like to stop. I always worry that my focus will be interrupted and I can't come back to it as good as I was sitting with it the first time. So I do struggle with stopping and starting, so I don't like to. So I might have about 3 sittings because I try and time it around when my husband's at work and the kids are at school. And I would probably say, on average, it would probably take me about 13 hours-ish each time if it's a drawing. My paintings are sometimes a little bit faster, depending on what I'm painting at the time, but I have got a very unusual thing that I do that everybody hates in my house. And
I was just going to ask you that to tell us. Go on.
Yeah. So say it's like an emotional piece that I'm working on. I like to have a song. And I'll choose the song. It sometimes can take me a while to sit down and draw because I need the song to be right. So I'll pick a song that matches with the mood of what I'm drawing or painting at the time, and I'll have it on and I put it on repeat. And it's the only song that I will have on that whole drawing. So if I sit down for, let's say, 4 hours while the kids are at school, that song will be on repeat for 4 hours. I'd never ever change the song. And then if I have to stop my work because I've got to go get my kids, I'll get up the next day, get them to school, and then I'll put the same song on again, and I never ever change the song until the work's finished. I feel like it keeps me in that kind of like mindset of how it helps me get emotion into my pictures. And I just think, especially if it's a song, so say when I drew Liam Gallagher, I was listening to Oasis and them sort of songs, just to try and keep me feeling like it's something personal to the person that I'm drawing. If I've been asked in the past to draw like somebody who's now passed away for a family, they'll say to me, "Can you draw them?" And I always feel this sounds so strange, but I'll say to them, "Did this person have a favourite song?" And they'll say, yeah, and they'll give me the song, and that's the song I listen to when I draw that person. I just think it gives it an emotional kind of connection, but yeah, I never ever change the song.
Is that common with an artist, or is that just something you've developed, you've just done yourself?
I don't know. I have spoken about it to other artists, and I know artists do listen to music a lot when they draw, but I've never had anybody ever say that they only keep one song on. Never. I do get some funny looks, and my family hate it.
Do you know? I've never heard any. Well, do you know what? I did Alan Thompson's book, Who Play for Celtic, and he told me. He said when I left Leeds, he was driving home from. I can't remember. I think he drove from Leeds to Glasgow, and he played one song. Open Your Eyes by it's not Coldplay, it's I don't know, someone can tell me on YouTube who it's by. I have heard it, and he basically drove home for about 4 hours with that song, song on repeat.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
not just me then.
Yeah, it's the song's called Open Your Eyes, and I remember listening thinking it's not really that great. Oh God, I can't even remember who it's by. Anyways, but so obviously you've did a couple of my book subjects. I take it when you did Lee Duffy's, you listened to The Whole of the Moon?
I did, because I remembered seeing that on the book and the page as well, about the Hall of the Moon being his favourite song. So I did listen to that song during that drawing. It was.
Can I ask? So obviously Duffy was, you know what I mean. He brings out different emotions in people in Middlesbrough. You know, I've personally met victims who, and I've looked at them, and all the bottom teeth's been missing, and that's from. So they still carry the scars. But I've also met people who've cried in front of me, and you know, but he's a guy who brings out certain emotions either way. You know, you were, what year were you born?
86.
So you were 6 when he died. 5, sorry. So you know, but he's a name. I didn't know him. I'd heard of him when I was 8. I believed in Santa Claus till I was 9, and I heard more or less stuff out of him 90 and 91, like every week from the older lads who used to talk about him. But growing up, he was very familiar to me, and obviously that's why I did the 3 books, why I did the 2 documentaries. Did you feel a little bit of it's almost as if you knew him but you didn't know him because you grew up in Middlesbrough?
It's a weird one, actually. It's because I'm from Middlesbrough. That's another reason why I've really enjoyed supporting your books as well with the drawings, is because obviously you're from Middlesbrough as well. Now I just find it really, nice to support other people from Middlesbrough as well, because I mean we're all in the same boat, aren't we? We're all trying to do something that we love, and I mean
that's how it should be.
It should be. I think there's nothing better than being supported by somebody else who shares the love for something just like you do. And it was, to be honest, the way that I started that drawing is actually because my husband's friend Darren, he's actually spoken to me. He's seen my work over the years, and he said to me that he'd read your book, and he was saying how great it was, and he really enjoyed it, and he remembers Lee Duffy. Yeah. And he was saying to me, like, it was a really.
Can I just ask how old he is?
Oh God. Well, if Darren's listening to this, I actually don't know. I think he's in. I have to be careful here.
So I'm 44 now, and I was 11 when he died.
Yeah, I think he'll have been a teenager at the time, I think. I can't even. I think late 40s.
Right, so you probably never knew him.
He knew of him, I think, because he lived in Park End. So,
right, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, my husband's met him at one point as well. So, but he's 53, so Darren's, I think, a little bit younger than John, so I can't really comment on his age. He'll be listening to this anyway. But he actually said to me, he was like, I think you should draw Lee Duffy. So at that point, I'd heard the name, but I didn't really know much about him. So I wanted to do that drawing, and then I reached out to your page, didn't I? And we were having a chat. That's how we first met. And then after me doing that drawing, we together, after discussing it, we decided to give that drawing to his daughter. Yeah,
which was lovely.
It was a nice thing to do, because she's got something that's, sentimental to her as well. And it complemented your book in a way. So
yeah, absolutely.
Together.
Particularly on YouTube, there's so much, I mean, envy and jealousy is such a powerful emotion, and a lot of people will try and destroy each other when that, I think you should literally just, if you draw, we talked about Brian Clough and whatever. I mean, you did the Paul Sykes stuff. That is, as I told you before, there's only one thing worth being talked about. It's not being talked about. So, I know the Gazette have picked up some of your stories. BBC Tees are going to be doing stuff, or may have done stuff in the past. So it's all about basically making a big noise, making a big smoke screen, and that's how it should be. But Paul Sykes. So I did 3 books. It's been signed to be a film. It is taking a while, but these do. I mean, the contract was signed in 2017. I'm told it's the next thing to do on Western Edge Pictures list. It was going to start in September 2020, but obviously COVID come along. To most, he's just some crazy guy on YouTube talking about punching sharks, but it's had millions of views. And I mean, what song did you listen to doing the Paul Sykes drawing?
Do you know what? I honestly can't remember which song I listened to. Because
his favourite song was Nutbush City by Tina Turner. And of course,
I definitely listened. I didn't listen to his favourite song then. I don't think I asked you that question at the time.
And obviously on his grave, he's got always look on the bright side of life. So that, but...
Do you know what? That rings a bell. That's the one you told me. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the songs that I often used to listen to watching Life of Brian with my dad. So that's how I'd remembered that. I thought I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I've never watched that, but obviously, because he was arrested. No, but he was arrested so many times, and he would always say that to the solicitors and the police, and I mean, and that is crackers. I mean, it's just hit 19,000 that Facebook page, and people are interested in. I've spoken to Martin O'Neill about him, Ricky Gervais, Jamie Carragher, like. People are. It's like, why do they behave like that? And it's from a psychological aspect. You try and understand, and I mean, so some of the people that you've done then, as I said, people will be watching all the pictures, and it's just a tip of the iceberg. But who's the drawings ones where you've really been drawn to and just thought, I have to draw you?
So. Definitely Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
I just had to draw him, and we'd been watching a box set about him, and I think often I'll watch things and it'll just draw me in, and I just like the character in his face. Another one, see, I get these so like very people that you either love them or you don't like them, it's people like that I tend to like to draw as well.
Yeah.
So the Tiger King was one of them. Weirdly enough, Donald Trump even owns one of my artworks as well.
That's incredible. How did that come about?
So, my dad lives in America, and he's very into politics. He wasn't before he went.
Yeah.
He lives in America now, and he's a massive Trump fan. And his friend Jeff was a huge Trump fan. And it was when he was actually president at the time. And my dad contacted me, and he said, Jeff would really like to buy you Winston Churchill. And he also wants to commission a drawing of Donald Trump. Would you do it for him? And I thought, well, why not? If he's asked me to do it, so I'll do it for him. So I done the drawing, and I sent it across. It got posted to America, and he absolutely loved it. He was so over the moon. My dad said to me that him and Jeff would often just stand in Jeff's house and just stare in awe at the Winston Churchill one especially. And he used to send me messages and say, I'm back in Jeff's house, we're both stood staring at his picture.
Yeah.
And which was nice. And then really sadly Jeff passed away I think it was about 3 years later after me doing the drawing. And Jeff's wife was American, Jeff was actually English as well, and she wasn't really a Trump fan, so she didn't really want to keep the picture, which is interesting that her husband and wife are both different ways, because in America it's quite dividing as well, the politics there. And so my dad said, well, I'll take it back. So she gave it to my dad, and my dad said to me, would you mind if I sent this picture to Donald Trump? So I didn't think anything of it, to be honest. I said, yeah, of course it is, yes, if you want to send it, send it. So he sent it, and we didn't hear back for a little while, and then he got a reply that was addressed to me but sent to his house, and it was just saying like, thank you so much for the picture, we love it, and thanks so much for your kindness for getting this, like, thanks my dad for his kindness for sending it over to him, and that I was very talented. And then he signed it, hand signed the letter, and then he'd also included like a picture of himself, a photograph, and he hand signed that as well. So I've got those, which is nice to keep. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there that do love Donald Trump, and a lot of people don't. I mean, personally, myself, I don't really have a preference. I'm not hugely into politics, if I'm honest. I don't really have a preference of any kind of, you know, which side I would go for, especially in American politics. It doesn't really concern the English side of stuff, so I can't really comment whether I like him or I don't, if I'm honest.
So there you have it. Like, basically, the most powerful man in the world owns Nat Moss. Well, former president owns Nat Mossart, and I mean, you must have interacted. I know there's one or two we're not even going to mention, you know, which you have done, and they're kind of famous, infamous. Other names then, you must have kind of come into a, you know, because obviously you're going to be doing my really good friend Alex Reid. Alex was Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother win, so he was 40-1 to win now, maybe 42-1. He was the biggest ever outsider, and, you know, lovely guy. I've got so much love for Alex. You know, me and you spoke about it, and if you listen, Alex, as I'm going to send you this, it's I'm totally captivated with his ears. There's so much character in them, because you know, the rugby player's ears, even though he doesn't play rugby, he's an MMA fighter, he's karate, he's jiu-jitsu, or all this kind of kickboxing stuff. You know, so how was, just curiosity, because I haven't asked you this morning, how was the Alex Reid drawing going?
It's going really well. I've started the eyes, the nose and the mouth. I'm up to that stage at the moment, but I haven't sent you an updated picture yet, Jamie, because I'm not fully happy with it, because I have to have it. It's just I haven't added the detail to it, so I think once I have to add all the main sort of features and then the detail. It's weird because sometimes I'll start the detail early. It just depends how I'm feeling, but with the reference picture that I'm using, it's quite black and white, and it's got not a great amount of detail in it, so I'm thinking of using other photographs as like kind of a reference to add a bit more of my own detail to it. But yeah, it's going really well though. I thought I want to add a bit more to it first before I send you an updated picture. Plus it was getting quite late and the lighting wasn't the best. I don't often draw at night for that reason.
Right.
Well, he's got a face of character, and that's what I like.
Yeah, he is a good guy, Alex. He's lovely man. Nothing like what the media have portrayed him.
Yeah.
You know, I become friends with him about 4 years ago, and I had it in my head who I thought he was, and you know, for a guy who can fight like the devil, he's just the least aggressive person. But I mean, there was an altercation. I was with him in London about 6 months back, and there was a drunken lout come over and started on him. And you know, he probably to this day doesn't realise who he was messing with, and you could see, like, it was like a flick switch. He just could tap into that. To cut a long story short, the guy was kind of walked off and lived to tell the tale. So Middlesbrough, the biggest Teesside personality of all time, Grove Hill guy. So he's from Grove Hill, like yourself, and ESPN voted the greatest managers of all time. This guy was number 3, Brian Howard Clough. So it is 20 years coming up since his death. I spoke to Martin O'Neill a couple of years back, and he said to me, I don't mind admitting I was petrified of him. Probably the most charismatic manager to ever enter the game. You know, that should be a natural progression. You're from Grove Hill. I was in the Dorman's Museum a couple of weeks back, and they've got this exhibition at the minute for like kind of Middlesbrough, and the whole wall's going to be on Brian Clough. Do you know who he is, and do you know much about him? Do you know actually how much of a, you're talking about royalty here, do you know what I mean? Like,
so I do know a little bit about him. I won't totally lie, I'm not huge into football.
Yeah.
I'm not much into football at all, if I'm honest. But the fact that he is from Grove Hill, it makes me more drawn to want to draw him as well. Plus, I think if I did do that drawing, it would be absolutely amazing if I could do it.
Can I just ask you on that? Sorry to put in, but
yeah.
Are you aware of where he was born and the blue placard on his house?
I'm not. No.
Do you know where Valley Road is?
Yeah, I used to live on it.
Number 11.
So I was 63, I think I lived.
Right, so if you go to number 11 Valley Road, obviously towards the park, if you have a look at that, there's a blue plaque and it says 1935, Brian Howard Clough was born here, you know, scored all his goals for Middlesbrough. And with Chris Rea is probably one you're going to do somewhere along the line. So Brian Clough met his wife Barbara in 1958 in Rea's Calf.
Wow.
So the voice of Middlesbrough is linked to the, you know, back in the day when there was for maybe 4 channels. I'm trying to think to Channel 4 come 1985. So back in the day when there was, you know, the 70s and there was only 3 channels, Brian Clough was on every other week. He was on Parkinson's. He was you know, these days it's Jose Mourinho, but he was the special one before the special one came along. And Chris Rea, I think Chris Rea was from, obviously he had Rea's Calf, which is was the Portal Calf. I think there's 5 in total. Do you know much about Chris Rea then? Driving Home for Christmas?
I know his songs. I don't know a great deal about him personally. I know he's from Middlesbrough, but I'm not sure whereabouts in Middlesbrough he's from. I think I need to do a little bit more reading up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a perfect time. Cloughie was 20 years this year. Obviously, I'm going to do the book with the clues in the name, Middlesbrough's Own. There's been 9 or 10 books on Cloughie, but there's never been a Middlesbrough kind of contingent, if you like. So I'm going to change that. And obviously, there's no better time out the 12 months than to start a drawing on Chris Rea than Christmas.
Christmas, yeah, that would be definitely has to be done on Christmas. That one. I mean, a lot of people on my page, when I've said things like, even the other day, I'd put like a poll on there, which ones should I draw next, because I couldn't decide which ones I wanted to do, and I had a few comments. Can you draw Brian Clough? And a few times, there's a few people mentioned it to me. Like my next door neighbour Stephen, he's messaged and mentioned him before, and it's like then when you were telling me about your book, I was just like, you know, I need to do this drawing. I have to, because I mean, I might not know a great deal about, you know, certain people, especially in football, I must admit, but it's the fact that I see it like a Middlesbrough person drawing a Middlesbrough person, and I just think it brings it more close to home for you as well, for me and for the people who are looking at the picture.
And if you sat down and thought about it, I mean, I did a video the other week for Don Revy's house, which was 20 Bell Street. I'm just trying to think what that would be classed as, maybe West Lane, Ayrsham. And so he was the England manager. He was kind of basically he made Leeds United great. You know, your Chris Kamaras, your Bob Mortimers, if you really, you know, your Jonathan Woodgate, your Stewie Downans. You know, if I sat and thought about it, there's a lot of strong personalities from Teesside, which, you know, I think it is kind of, probably goes without saying that maybe you should probably put a marker down and kind of almost conquer Middlesbrough before you go off and conquer Britain and the world, and that's how I would do it.
Yeah, I have actually done a drawing of, I don't know if you're familiar with Henry Boyle.
Yes,
it's the first mayor of Middlesbrough, and he actually put us on the map for the iron industry, but that one was actually done for an exhibition that was centred around Middlesbrough, anything to do with Middlesbrough, but I do have a love for history as well, so I had a little bit of research, and I'm looking online, and I thought, right, who do I feel more drawn to? So I'm looking at a lot of people, and for some reason, it was a real old photograph of Henry Boyle, and for some reason, as soon as I seen his face, I was like, that's the one, I need to do that, I need to do a picture of him. But I did kind of it was for an exhibition, so I wanted it to have a little bit of, you know, be a bit different. So after doing his drawing, what I did was I'd ordered some actual INR pieces from eBay from a lady who actually goes up the hills and actually gets the INR, and I used it. I filed it down to be like a powder, and I used it in the background of the piece, like behind him, and I used them in the framework as well. I called that one a background. It sounds really cheesy actually, but I called it a background of INR because in the picture, when you look at it, it's got a background of INR, but Henry Boyle himself had a background of INR. So we've actually been, I took my kids up, because we live not far from the park anyway, and I've took my kids up to the cemetery, and we've actually been and visited his resting place as well.
Where is that, by the way, just out of curiosity?
Sorry?
Where is his resting place?
Do you know opposite Stuart's Park?
Right, yeah.
Cemetery. Can't remember what the church is called now off the top of my head. But
St. Cuthbert's.
It's in there. It might, yeah, I think it is, yeah. It's like there's a railing around his, where he's buried. I don't know if it's slightly lifted out of the ground or if there's a plaque on the top. I can't remember now actually, but there's like there's a railing goes right around, and it's got like loads of writing about him and stuff on there, which is really nice. I think it's the fact that people can, I mean, I never even knew that's where he was buried, if I'm honest.
Neither did I.
Yeah, but not many people seem to know. I'd posted it on my page a few times. I took the kids to go, I was telling them about him. And because when I'd done the drawing, they were asking, like, who is it? So I said, well, I'll go and take you to where he's buried. And we had we stood there and we read. And it's just nice because I was never taught about Henry Boyle at school. I had to come across him online to learn about him and hear things when people, I follow Middlesbrough history pages, and when they've put posts on it, I've learned that way. But I totally think that schools should, especially with him being the first mayor as well, and the fact that he brought the iron industry and stuff here and the steelworks, that it should be something you learn about in school. But I never ever knew about him until I was an adult.
I mean, I'm just trying to think. So the local ones, I mean, you've did your Bernie Slavens, you've did your Alistair Brownlees, God rest him, of course, we've said on Duffy, and it hasn't all, I mean, there's definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, a good 4 or 5 I would really strongly advise you to do from the Middlesbrough point of view. But as I said, your Robin Williams, your Albert Einsteins, your Trumps, your Tiger Kings, of course Marilyn Monroe, Stephen Hawkins, and even Kate Bush. So it's like, even your fiction characters like your Walter Whites and what was the Birmingham thing called? Peaky Blinders?
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you kind of just float about and wait to see kind of someone that jumps out you saying, draw me?
Yeah, it's kind of like I'll watch something on the telly and I'm like, right, I need to draw him. I have this thing where, like, say I'm stuck talking to you, I'll be looking at the detail in your face and I'm thinking, what sort of, would I use a HB for that part, or would I use a 2B for that bit? And I'm already like drawing you in my mind when I'm looking at you. That's what I do with people. But I like to draw people that have got character to the face. And some people, I'll see them, like a famous person or anybody, and even if someone says, can you draw this person, unless I feel like a connection with that picture that I've seen, I always find it quite difficult to do it. That's why I don't tend to do many commissions for people. It's just because I think that when I see a picture, like when I did the Heisenberg one, the Walter White, so my dad had drawn that a few years previously, and I was never happy with it, how it looked. My dad thought it was great. By the way, I must say he's a huge supporter of my artwork now, even though he said that about that baby picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a huge support for my artwork, and he was like, I don't think you should draw him again. And I said, why not? And he's like, because I don't think you could do it as good as you did last time, and you might not get it as good, and then you'll be disappointed. But I knew already, because we'd watched Breaking Bad again, and I just got that urge. And I said, I already know it's going to be better than that one. And he's like, I don't think you could, because that one's brilliant. And anyway, I did it. And it ended up being way, way better in the detail, to the fact that over the years I've learned to be brave and use like a dark pencil for dark areas where I would have tended to have gone a bit lighter in the past. But I think it's just when I see character, when I see people's faces, if I'm drawn to them, this sounds so strange, but I like white, grey hairs, beards. I don't like to draw glasses, I must admit, they're a bit tricky for me, but I have done. But anything like that gives it character, like the hair, like long hair, wrinkles, anything like that, I just can't get enough of.
Yeah. So what I've noticed, Nat, is you are far more prolific on your social media these days, which is always good to see. And
yeah,
I always say to people, there's no point writing the best book in the world if you don't tell anyone. Exactly. I remember James English said to me a couple of years back, he said, "You're the first thing I see in the morning and the last thing I see at night." And you have to be relentless. It's like when I do a book, I will, like, every day for as long as I'm alive, I will share that on some. You've just got to push it down people's faces, and So for anyone listening to this, I'm going to put all of Nat's links in the bio. So if anyone wants to get in touch with Nat, click on the link in the bios. So you're on your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, you're even on YouTube now. And my advice to you is I'm surprised you're surprised. You should have been doing this years ago, particularly Twitter.
I'm confident.
But anyone who's kind of like myself, and a public figure or whatever, anytime I've ever been contacted by televisions or radios or newspapers, it's always Twitter. That is the first port of call of anyone trying to make this way in the world. And it's good to see that you are, but as I said, you've got 5,000 on your Facebook page. And it's good on you. You need to keep going, and we've all got sad stories. Work hard, and no one's going to do it for you. So you need to get out there and push it. And so what's the plans for Nat Moss Art now? Then where are you at?
So I would say in the past I didn't feel like I had the confidence. It was always scary to share your work with the world, because when I first started putting my artwork out there, I had a lot of negative comments, and because I wasn't very confident with my art or anything really at that point. I think I took it to heart a lot, and I tended to it put me off sharing my work. And then I got to about 2018 and I created my page, and I just started putting them on there, and just didn't really have many followers. And over the years I've had people come and follow me, and I mean, it's very, very rarely now do I ever get any hate comments on there, which is nice. But if I got them now, it wouldn't bother me at all. It really wouldn't. I think I've grown a thicker skin for that now. I think it's just that I'm happy with what I make. I mean, I've had people say, "Well, I don't really like that," but I do. So I'm going to post it to my page, because my artwork's kind of for myself. I don't just draw and paint to please other people. I do it for myself because that's how I'm feeling at that time. And so I always say this, I always have to keep true to myself and paint what I want to do, because that's what's from the heart. And I think that's what's important, to keep it honest. And so now more people have joined. I can't be more thankful, to be honest, to the people that do follow me, because the feedback that I get all the time is just absolutely amazing. It's out of this world. It's helped hugely with my confidence as an artist and as a person.
I mean, you must have. Let me tell you, I bet the worst you've had it is when you did the Paul Sykes and the Lee Duffy drawings. I did have some very, comments where some were good, some weren't so great. And it's not about, for me, it's not about drawing. It's not that I'm saying, well, I really like this person, I really love this person, I need to draw this person. I see character. I see someone that's a bit different, and I enjoy drawing that person.
it's as simple as that.
Like a moth to a flame.
Yeah, it is, and it was also nice to be able to give that to his daughter as well. I think that was something she gets to keep, and she actually said to me that she was going to hand that down to her son. So that means a lot. It's what means a lot to me is when my artwork touches the hearts of others. I always say that I've got it written on my page, and if I can do something that means something to somebody else, to the point where she wants to pass that down to her son, it doesn't get better than that. That's what I've always hoped to achieve from my work, and by helping like charities, like I have been, I've helped quite a lot of different charities, and it's mainly just, for me, it's about giving something back. I like to think that if you've got a talent for art, it's hard for me to describe actually, but if you've got a talent for art and you're just making art, you need to make it mean something and make a difference. And I just think, if I can do one drawing, spare a couple of days of my time, and that drawing can therefore go on to help a charity, and you know, even if it's just a small amount, it's still making a difference. That makes me feel like really proud of myself and of my artwork, that it can make a difference to somebody's life. So I think that I will always carry on helping charities with my work, always, because that's what it makes me happy to know that I can help make a difference.
And then of course, to be quite honest, I mean, do you know what, this is a scary statistic, but it's probably a very accurate one, is that drawing, obviously it'll be passed on to Lee's grandson, so that drawing is probably going to outlive you. It
probably will, and do you know what, it's an interesting point.
It's very powerful and thought-provoking when you think of things like that.
It really is. I mean, my daughter said to me before, and about last year actually, she said, she's 7, she said to me, she got upset and she said, Mum, she said, I don't want you to die. And I said to her, well, everybody dies, you know, it's part of life. I tried to explain it to her in the nicest possible way of, you know, how you could possibly say that to a 7-year-old. And I just said, you know, people pass away and they go to heaven. But I said, but guess what? I said, even though when I get really old and I will pass away, I said, I never will truly die. And she sort of looked at me confused, and I just said to her, because my artwork will still be on people's walls, even way after when I'm no longer here. And so, in a way, I'll always be here because of that reason. And it kind of shifted the conversation. So she seemed like she thought about it. Yeah. So you're thinking, and she was just like, "Oh yeah, that's true."
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a huge point when you say that.
Do you know? I mean, I wanted to do 100 books at one point. You know, I mean, I've got 4. So Mickey Duff's 27, Brian Clough's will be 28. So do you know what? I'll probably be happy to, because I probably do want to do other things, but I'll definitely do at least 30 books in my life. And you know, that will be there forever. And it's like you. I mean, you know, you're 37, 47, 50, 30 years time. Do you think you could still be drawing and living for your art?
Yeah, I'll never ever stop drawing. That's one thing I can honestly say. Like, it's just part of me. It's what I do. I mean, even as a kid, I used to look forward to the Easter egg competitions every single year. It's just anything to do with art, I've always had like a love for, and it's nice because my kids do it as well now. Like my youngest one, Ava, she's absolutely like just so much into her art. It's lovely to see. She takes after me, like, for the passion that she shows for art, even at such a young age.
Yeah, it is. It's really inspirational, you know, when you kind of put that into context. And so, I mean, you must have met a lot of interesting people, though. You know, I mean, some people some people are that arrogant. I said to you the other day, never meet your heroes. I mean, I spent time with probably my favourite fighter of all time. I'd followed his career right the way through, watched him win the ABAs, and I met him, and he actually asked me to write his book. I think I'd only done about 2 books then, and the more I learned about him, the more I was just like, I wish I'd never met you. And I declined, but you know, once upon a time I did that book for free. And have you kind of met people like that, you know, and do you know what, there is people out there I've met, like your Ricky Burns, your Josh Warringtons, and I thought, you know what, you're actually nicer than what I even thought. But there is the other side aspect of it, and you're just like, but ultimately, people are drawn. You've got such a unique gift, which, as I said, if I live till I'm 108, I don't think I could ever. I personally think, you know, you are kind of born probably with 50-60%, and obviously you work and you dedicate yourself and you've committed to your craft. That's just my opinion. But you know, I know you've had a few highs and lows, which we probably will talk about in a couple of weeks. You know, we're going to do a series of podcasts. But this one, Nat, is just all about how it started, your passion for it. As I said, people can see on the screen. That is seriously impressive. You know, I don't often swear in life, and I would now, but I don't, because YouTube kinda, you don't get as much. So I will kinda say, I'll just spell it out or something. But yeah, I'm like fabulously impressed with your stuff, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be. You know, as I said, you know, please click on the bio to this video, click on the links, that will take you to Nat's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Was there anything you wanted to tell, Nat?
Yeah, actually, just answering what you said, is there anybody that I've ever met that I've regretted after? There's a couple of times that I have drawn certain people, and then afterwards I thought they're not what I thought they were, and I might have sort of in that moment regretted it, but you know, in the long run, I don't regret drawing anybody that I've ever drawn, because I just think it's got me to where I am at this moment in time. So even though it might not seem very great at that moment, it's made me the person that I am for them other times. And the only other thing that I was going to add as well was that when you was like saying about, are you born to do it? I think that some certain people can they're born to see things slightly different.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people who are like fantastic artists do have things like dyslexia and ADHD, and also autism. And I think that there's some absolutely amazing people who have disabilities that it pushes them towards the art. And I think it's a way of, like, for me, it's a coping mechanism, it's therapy, and I just think that sometimes you just notice the tiny little details that other people may not, and that does help with artwork.
Well, I told you a story the other day, which is true, about a prisoner in Alcatraz, and he was an incredible drawer. This was the 1930s or something, and he, you know, as a punishment, they basically took all his art stuff out, and he was that miserable that when he went to a workshop, he put his hands on a table and chopped about all his fingers off, and that was a protest of basically, you fucking took away my life. You know, I know. I've spoke to Charles Bronson over the years. He's asked me if he wanted to do the front cover a few times, a man. He's read a few of my books, and I know he's going through that now, obviously, with he did you know, he pretended he had a son. I don't know whether you know, but there was a PR stunt, basically.
I did see something about
that, so they've took all his privileges away. I personally think he'll never get out. I know he written me a letter once, really not happy with me, because someone said the same in the book, and I said, listen, I didn't, I can't. It's what someone says is, I can't do anything about it. It was a book that I written the start, I written the end, but the guts in between were what people, was 50 people who knew him, and he took fabulous offence to this, and but he's I just don't think he will ever see the light of day, and it is very, very tragic and sad when you think that was probably, I'm sure you could try and imagine living in a 10 by 8 foot cell,
And
his art,
horrific.
his art probably got him through it. It made so much for charity. But you've got to play by the game, particularly when you're a Cat A prisoner. So every action is a reaction, and he's kind of brought it on himself. He should be kind of trying to get down, and the B's and the C's and the D cats, but it's I will. You've never had. I personally admit that I've released 22 books, and I regret 6 or 7 of them. They shouldn't have even had my phone number. Let alone me spend 3 months writing the book. But you live and you learn. But
do you think you'll regret them in the long run, or do you think you may look back and think, you live and you learn, I've made my mistakes, but without me making them mistakes with them certain books, then I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have done that?
Well, it's certainly made me a lot, I don't want to use the word famous, but more well known. I went to interview really, I'm not going to mention his name. Your name dropping that, but I interviewed him for a book, and I met him in Mile End last 6 months ago. And as I sat down, I'm thinking, God, this is this, and he went to me, did they call you tinfoil, blah blah blah, and then he just started telling me about he knows who I am, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I used to have posters of you on my bedroom wall, and I was stopped in London, Piccadilly Circus, and people were asking me about certain YouTube nonsense, and so it does have its plus side. Oscar Wilde, there's only one thing worse being talked about, and it's not being talked about. I firmly believe, Delroy Showers told me this years ago. He said, when people are talking about you, that is a sign of success, because naturally as humans we are very self-centered. A lot of us are narcissistic sociopaths, and Martin Luther King said, show me a man who's got no haters and I'll show you a man who's got no success. I didn't know how to deal with it in 2017, 18, 19. I do now, but I was diagnosed with dyspnea, which is a form of anxiety. But I do now, and it's like you, I have literally had to, I can honestly just laugh, smirk now when I get insulted. And that's a sign of maturity. And if you're going to go on this road to draw for the next 30 years, Nat, you will get them. But it's not a bad thing. Let me promise you, I'm probably a lot more years in front of you, being in the public spotlight, and I dare say at times I've probably been the most spoken of man in Teesside, for everyone who wanted to lynch. But I get it now, and I can accept it. And it's just one of them things. But so your future, you're doing Alex Reid. You've made a start on that. I'm going to be with Alex this next 2 or 3 months. I will. I'm sure. Well, you'll speak to him very soon anyway. But I will present that personally. Alex will. I'll run with it on our pages, and you're doing Brian Clough in October. Which it's 20 years on. I'll tell you that now. The BBC Tees and the Gazette will be all over that. Northern Echo and all that. Leave that to me. And then Chris Rea driving on for Christmas, and so. But then there must
be for Christmas.
Yeah, you could actually give it to Chris for Christmas.
The Christmas present.
Yeah, the options are. Your James Arthurs. If you sat and thought about it, and.
I have thought of doing James Arthur before.
Well, I don't know him, but I know someone who knows him because he's a big boxing fan.
I love his music.
So I think you should literally clean Teesside up first. And
there's a lot of Teesside people who I would like to draw.
That's your niche, that's your market there. Nat Moss art, Groville girl. Your Teesside, your Middlesbrough, you're the Borough, you've got bechamel sauce in your veins. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's that's what I personally would do. But what are you going to do then in his next plans? Well,
I'd say the weird thing is, it's I I don't always plan ahead, because when I get an idea of what I want to draw or paint, it'll just suddenly come to me. Like the other day, it was often as well. I listen to music, and the music inspires me. I love music. I have it on all the time. And it was a song by Callum Scott, "Dancing on Your Own," and that song was just. I had it on repeat, and you knew it was going to come to me what I needed to paint. I couldn't pinpoint what it was going to be, and then all of a sudden I got like a thought about a ballerina sitting in the corner on her own, like looking, and I just instantly thought of it. So that's where that painting came from, just because I listened to that song. So my inspiration comes from literally everywhere. Like I could just be in the car one day. I mean, my daughter, because I have a notebook that I write my ideas down in so I don't forget, because I will forget. And my daughter's at school, and she knows now that she'll get the most random messages from me. Like the other day, she got a message sent to her while she was in school, and it was little girl sat in the boot of a car on a pigeon basket. But she knew that that's just what I do, because if I don't have my book with me, I need to remember it, so I send them all to Rosie. So our little history of messages are so random, the things that I send her on. I'm quite.
How old is Rosie?
15.
So she, that's another kid would probably think Mum's on drugs, but she she understands our Mum's just being creative with her ideas again. Yeah,
she does. She'll come home and she'll say, "Mum, really? I was sat in English when I got that."
Do you know you've got a gift? And I mean, I'm writing a book now at the minute. It's Mickey Duff, and so people have said to me, "How have you got talking to Barry McGuigan? How are you meeting Frank Warren and all this?" And if I said, "Oh, I'm so and so, I'm writing a book on boxing," no one would give a monkeys. But because I'm picking these characters, it's the characters that open the door for me, and that's what I would advise you to do. No one really gives two hoots on Jamie Boyle, or certainly didn't years ago. But when I started picking these, like your Paul Sykes's. I'm just trying to think who else. Robbie Williams is obsessed with him. I know that because I met the makers of the Paul Sykes at Large. And for instance, when I've tagged him, I've got the odd response, but it's not because of me. It's because he's, and that's what I would do if I were you. You're not quite the Kardashians level yet. So, seriously, but go and pick the characters and the worldwide names and the local names as well. But that's what I remember writing releasing a book 2017, and there was a fellow author with Warcry Publishing, and he'd spent years doing this book, and I come along and I got my first book done in 18 months, but a lot of it, I'd left it for 5 months and never did, and it got started to be a film, bestseller, Waterstones, papers, all this, and he basically saw what I did and tried to rushed his work and got his book out about 6-7 weeks later, and it flopped. And the reason it flopped was because my success was I picked someone millions and millions of people were familiar with, where he picked a story, a made up story, and that's what would have happened to me if I'd have been Jamie Boyle. I'm writing a book, a fictional tale about X, Y, and Z. Nobody gives a hoot, but because I've picked a character, I've stuck my head in a beehive. That no one, keep away from him. Lee Duffy, all this kind of. Do you know what I mean? So
I understand what you mean, but the thing is as well, I just want to add that you are fantastic at what you do, and there's so many people that when I've done the drawings that went along with your books, kind of thing. Your books inspired me to do them, And a lot of people did say to me, like, oh, he's a fantastic author, he's brilliant. You know, there's so many people that have said that to me after I'd done them drawings. So I also think that it is the characters that you do, but you should be proud of yourself as well for what you've achieved, and you are brilliant at what you do, so never ever stop.
It's amazing how, I mean, about 2018 or 2019, Home House Prison rang my publishers and said, are you Jamie Boyle's publishers, blah blah blah, and then they said, all his books in here are getting stolen. And they were saying that, like, they were surprised there's thieves in there, and I could not say this for years because there was a manager in Waterstone. He's left now anyway, but you know, when The Hole of the Moon came out in 2018, 30 was stolen in the first month. Yeah, you know, and it's like I was actually.
That's the compliment.
Well, it is because I mean, I'm not telling anyone to go steal my books, but
no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, but obviously I don't have to teach a shop how to put better security on. So it actually it's not a bad thing, but you know, 30 was stolen, and that booklet was the most successful book by a local author in the shop's history, which is something like 25-year-old. But you know, as I said, it's me, but it's more for the subject. And if I could give you any advice, yes, Alex, read. But you know, come October, when it's 20 years, I'll get you the date. Do Brian Clough that week.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to
do Chris Rea a week before Christmas. Do you know what I mean?
I've always had him. We've talked about him in the past, and I have always had him on in my book as somebody to draw. I mean, for me, a lot of the time as well is I like to know, because like, you know, there is people in the past that have drawn, and I haven't really known much about. So what I tend to do is now, only because I've learnt from the past, I like to understand the person that I'm drawing, so I know a bit about them. So I feel like. Sounds really strange, but like a personal kind of connection to the person that I'm drawing. If I know a little bit about their life and what they're about, it just gives me that, like, I draw them a lot easier. And I think that I tend to do some, like, realistic drawings. I like to do famous people, and I like to do, like, I've drawn my kids and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I'll think, I can't do no drawings, I need to go for a painting now, and so I'll change constantly. The amount of people that have said, like, the way you do your art, it's just 1 minute it's like this, the next minute it's like that, and I mean, I'll pick things off the ground, and I'll, like, for instance, I'd been to see my mum, and there was a burnt can in, like, a fire that had been put out. And I just looked at it and thought, I can't leave it there. I need it. So I thought, I'm going to take that home with me, and I'm going to do something with it, because what a shame. Yeah, it's a can, it would just probably get recycled, but it's been burned, it's probably going to go in the bin, and it's on the grass at the moment. So I thought, I'll just take it as a challenge. So I brought it home with me. First I sealed it all, and then I did a piece of artwork on it, and I shared it on Facebook, and it got like 17,000 likes. I couldn't get over it. I just thought, because for me, it meant a lot to me, because personally, that's one of my favourite pieces, and it's just a little burnt can. But a lot of other people, I think they appreciated the thought and the work that went into it, because it's an unusual piece maybe, but it's kind of like, I like to draw people that I kind of feel a personal connection to want to draw, if you know, like from the heart. So it's quite difficult sometimes if, like, I think, well, he's from Middlesbrough, so I'll draw him. For me, it's that I've got to kind of feel drawn to that person, so I might read a little bit about them, and if I'm still not feeling it, I'll have to think about somebody else. But it is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, is to draw some more people from Middlesbrough. I've drawn Mackenzie Thorpe as well. He's got that portrait. I gifted it to him. Which was nice. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I mean, here's a tip for you. You know, so you're talking about the famous, infamous, notorious, whatever, the big names. But say, for instance, like, I mean, I was talking to a guy who got 15 years with the Cray Twins, 2018, and we were talking about doing a book, and it was going to be, so we were talking about doing it in 2019, and it was 50 years on from the trial. Now the papers were going to cover that because it was 50 years on. So say for instance you do James Arthur in the future, you know, like, and he's coming up 40, you kinda, so a lot of media, a lot of papers and radios will kinda, because it means something, so try and tie something into, you know, like a factor, a point, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I did my very first book on Paul Sykes' 10th anniversary. I would have loved to have released the Mickey Duff book on the 10th anniversary of his death in March, just gone. I can't, I'm busy. You know, I really should have probably done the Brian Clough book and released it on the 20th anniversary. So it's things like that, Nat. You know, I always try and tie in for maximum, you know, because the BBC Tees or a Gazette or the Hartlepool, they'll always cover it that bit extra because it's, you know, there's a reason for it to be. It's just little things like that, you know, you learn. But do you know what, Nat? This has been absolutely magnificent. So, was there anything you want to add before I let you go?
Maybe just, I think that, you know, when you've mentioned that you would like to learn to draw. Well, I think we should do it, Jamie, and we'll make a YouTube video of it so that all your followers can see your beautiful artwork.
Oh God, do you know though? I have not done anything since I was at school, and then I was never that good, you know. But that probably would be funny, just to. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of definitely what I thought. But as I said, YouTubers. So if you've enjoyed listening to this, please to go in the bio. Nat's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel. No, she's only got about 34 on it, but she, you know, I did tell you the day, and she's going to start her little channel. And you know, I mean, have you ever thought about? I was actually, I did a talk in Middlesbrough College in January. Have you ever thought of kind of doing things like that? And
yeah, I mean, I've got a piece of work in Middlesbrough College. It's to do with my struggles in maths, basically, and I wanted it to say to people that even though you're struggling in one subject, does not mean you can't do well in another. So the artwork speaks for itself in the pictures that's like depicted onto the painting. With the struggles with the maths, but then the painting itself can say, well, just because you're not great at maths doesn't mean you can't be great at art, you know. And they've actually put a frame up with the explanation behind that piece on the wall, so that was nice. I've also done some like art lessons in my youngest children's school. I've been in a couple of times. Once when my older children were a bit younger, and I'd gone in, and then I'd been in recently to do some artwork around RE with them. Then in the 6 weeks holidays just gone, I volunteered at the local cafe, and we, for this like once a week for the 6 weeks, we ran like a children's art group where they came. There's quite a lot turned up. I was quite shocked actually. And we done lots of like different topics, and I think my favourite one was, so I've done a painting. This sounds really strange, but I do look strange, and it's a painting that I did made from mud out of my back garden. So I, you know, sieved it and everything and made the mud so it was really runny. We've added water to it. Got it from different places around the garden, so it was a different colour and different shade. And I painted a horse in mud. I did a bit of charcoal to the darker areas, but mixed it in with the mud so that it was just darker. And that, I sealed it all when it was done, and I still have that piece. And I thought, I like to show people that you don't need to have a lot of money to create artworks. Like, the things around you on a daily basis that people would take for granted. Like, when I was a kid, I used to draw on my mum's envelopes that she got her bills and stuff in like that. And that's something I carry with me now. I still do artworks on envelopes. Get things like mud. You can make stuff from absolutely anything. I mean, I'm in my loft room at this moment in time. I was speaking, and in the corner of that room's my little studio where I keep my stuff, all my artworks and stuff. And I mean, I'm looking right now at a suitcase that I've painted a little girl onto, and there's a bike wheel that I've made into a Viking shield, and like, they didn't cost me very much. I mean, the bike wheel I found next to a bin. That makes me sound rather weird, but I just like the challenge of like finding something that somebody would just throw away and giving it like a new lease of life. And I think that it's possible for anybody at all to do that. Like, just if you look at stuff a little bit differently, you'll be amazed at the things that you actually see.
Mm-hmm. And if you could give one bit of advice to any kind of aspiring artists or people who kind of would, what would it be?
It would be just keep doing what you're doing. Like, just keep going, practice. All you need is practice, dedication, patience. They're the three main things that you need. As long as you're patient, if you're finding it difficult, put that piece down, come back to it. It always helps. Mm-hmm. Also, never ever feel that you're in competition with other artists. I've often in my past made that mistake where you're like, I wish I was as good as them, or why can't my work be? I think as artists we all feel like that at some point. But what I've learned is it doesn't matter what anybody else is making, doesn't matter what, you know, if you're really good or you don't feel like you're that good. At the end of the day, if you create artwork that you love, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, and don't let any negative comments stop you from doing your artwork, because it does matter. It matters to you, and it matters to the people who enjoy seeing your work. I mean, I've had people, for instance, my next door but one neighbour, who sadly passed away, I think it was about a year and a half ago, and he was following my art page. Really, really lovely man, and he always left me such nice comments. And after he passed away, I was absolutely gutted. He was a lovely bloke, and his family actually contacted me, and it meant so much to me. His daughter sent me a message. She said to me, I just wanted you to know that your artwork brought my dad so much joy. And I just thought, wow, like, never in a million years did I ever think that, artwork that I'm just scribbling away in my kitchen could make a difference to somebody else who's looking at that piece. And it did, and it taught me your artwork, yeah, you're doing it for yourself, but you don't realise just how many other people are seeing your work, appreciating it, and taking something from it as well.
Do you know, I mean, that is really special. That kind of just hit home there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's obviously some guy, elderly guy. And, you know, if anyone kind of wants to reach out to you, Nat, as I said, put the bios in the link in the bios. You're very approachable and easy to chat with.
Oh, thanks. My dad always said I could talk a glass eye to sleep, so could be that.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone kind of wants any advice.
Yeah, I mean, I've got an art group that I have pinned at the top of my art page as well. And
so I'm going to put the link in that. Is that the Facebook group rather than the page?
Yeah.
I'll put them both in.
Natmos Art Followers group, and that is basically because I always feel like I appreciate the fact that people take a moment of their time to not only follow me, but to leave comments and to leave me feedback and to share my work. And I have a lot of other people on there that do art that follow me, and it was kind of a way I made the group because it's nice for me to be able to see other people's art, and they can't really show me it because they're only commenting on mine. So I opened it up so that other people could join the group. It's a private group because, you know, some people might not want to share it publicly, and that's absolutely fine. You can also post in there and have it where nobody knows who posted it. I would say the word, but I can never pronounce it.
Anonymous.
That's the one. Yeah, it's so that, you know, if you're not very confident, you're just starting out, you would like a bit of advice, or, you know, what would you do to make this any different, or what could I use for this? Then people are, you know, free to pop them in there. And I've got such a lovely little group. Like, the people who are in there are so supportive, and it's so nice to see the people will post their artwork asking for a bit of advice, and they'll all jump in there and give the advice, and it's nice, and I'll offer my advice too, and it's just it's a nice little group to be able to get a bit of advice on artworks, and even if they just want to leave a comment to ask me something, that's absolutely fine, and it's a great way of getting the people who follow me for me to get to know them as well in a way. So it's not just one-sided. I do like to get to know other people too.
Yeah, that's something that Alex Reid's like. When you talk with him, he'll want to know about you, and it's like when he's been on interviews and that, I'm like, Alex, you can't interview the interviewer. but he's nice. He wants to know about you, and not a lot of people are like that because they want to talk about themselves.
It is a nice thing to do because it's not just about my work. It's the people I've got people on my page from other countries, and there's a gentleman from France. There's a gentleman from Mexico, and they'll comment on my art page in their own language. So what I'll do is I know I can translate it, and it'll come up in English. But rather than just write it in English so they translate it on their side, I use Google Translate, and I'll write what I want to say, then I'll paste it to my comment section, and I'll reply back to them in their own language, because I just think these people have taken the time to come and follow my page. It's just courtesy, and it's just nice for me to be able to reply back, and so I'm making that little bit of effort.
Yeah, I mean, that's very good of you, because it's so time consuming. I mean, I have 14 Facebook pages.
I don't know how you do it.
I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram, I have a YouTube. Yeah. I've had more, but I've deleted a few. But it's all a means of interaction, and that's what you need to do. As I said to you, and I'll put it in more how you understand. There's no point being the best artist in the world if you don't show anyone. So you have to, and that's why I will always be relentless. It's one thing. I've never been shy of attention, but that's what you've got to do in life. But Nat, you know what? I was only going to do it now. We've done nearly an hour and a half. So we are.
I told you I would talk a lot.
No, I prefer it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to do part 2 in a week or so, or whatever. Or, I know there's going to be some headlines coming up in the local papers about something which is ongoing. Don't really want to go in it now at the minute. It will become very public. It will become, you'll put your side out, and I dare say this will, leave a little ripple in a pond. But we'll come to that bridge when it comes. But this has just been fascinating. Why you got into art. People have been listening to this now for nearly an hour and a half, watching, looking at your. Just utterly staggering for me, these pieces of art, and you're only going to get better. So I think you really want to I made a decision a couple of years back where I thought, when people say author in Middlesbrough or Teesside, they'll think of one person, and I've kind of gradually done that, and I think that's what you should do, is basically kind of almost try and get the blueprint of art in Middlesbrough, and further afield. You've certainly got the ability. But as I said, Nat, anyone who's listening, please get over and give Nat's booming little Facebook page a follow. She's always busy putting stuff on. It's nice as well following yours, because there's no nastiness, there's no bullying, there's no swearing, there's no, particularly on YouTube, you're just like, oh mate, have a day off. You never look good, make someone look bad, and I'm sure you can, it's the same villains all the time. He's this, he's that, and it's like, just, you know what I mean? It's like, get a life. So
I've been quite blessed, really, because the people who follow me, they are so lovely. They really are. There's not one person on my page that ever, I've never ever had anything bad said in so long. It's nice. It just gives you that little bit of faith in humanity. It's just lovely. And I've got such a great support network on my page as well. Never did I imagine when I first opened my page I only opened that page as a place to post my artwork, because like you said, what's the point in painting and drawing if you're never going to get it seen? So for me, it's like, that was my little page to put my artwork. I made it public, and I was a bit worried about doing it public at first. And I just thought, what's the point in drawing if it's sat here in a book? It's never been seen. No one's going to see it. So I need to get it out there, put it somewhere. If one person appreciates something I've drawn, that would make my day. And that's how it started off. And then over the years, I think my friends and my family followed me first, and then I would meet somebody and tell them about my art, and they'd follow me, and it just got passed about. And I don't know how on earth I've made it to 5,000 followers. It's even now I've got to like pinch myself. Like, is there really that many people that want to see my artwork? Like, see me, just little me drawing in my kitchen on my worktop, because that's exactly where I do my artwork. I sit in the kitchen, I'll do my work, and then I have a tiny little space in my loft room where I have a desk and I keep my things. And I call that my studio, but really my kitchen worktop is my studio. There's nothing special that I have to do to create art. Like, I could literally just sit anywhere.
But it's funny, because my wife is saying to me, Jamie, why don't you get yourself an office? And I have all the equipment, like tables and desks and that, and do you know what I do? Like, I just lay on my bed, pillars puffed up, and that's how I've written 20 odd books, like, just on my bed. And like, I'm comfortable, I put music on, I put the fan on, classical on or something, and I'll put my headphones on, and do you know what I mean? And it's just my little world. And so we'll have to it is. And it's my happy space, being in bed, maybe YouTube on, or just hid away from the world. But that's definitely something we probably think about, that is maybe coming around and videoing you drawing. So we are going to chat in a week or so for a part 2. I'm sure there'll be a part 3, part 4, whatever. I'm going to support you forever. I think it's magnificent what you're doing.
Thank you.
And it's so nice to see someone who's not, I'm sure there'll be people listening to this saying, oh, the irony, but it's nice to see people not going on about fighting and nonsense, and kind of, I've never been like that, but I have written about, do you know what I mean? But it's just a breath of fresh air, kind of watching stuff where I find it very hard to believe anyone would ever kind of troll you anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's if you control someone over art, then you really need to get a life.
I've had the odd comment like, your drawing looks like Frankenstein, and it's quite a compliment. I like Frankenstein. Yeah. Do you know what I get? I get comments about my hair, and about 80% of them are bald. You just like, if I was going to call someone Jamie Boyle, that would be the last thing I'd say about. But anyway, I don't know. Nothing. But you like your long hair? Why you have it long?
Yeah, I'm kind of a man of many different appearances, so I like to chop and change. But yeah, Nat, it's been an absolute pleasure, love. So listen,
it's been lovely.
It has. So crack on with Alex Reid. Let us know the finishing thing. I mean, I actually will pop and see you, obviously, to get it. We'll do a little video, and then obviously I'll present Alex it as well. Brian Clough, Chris Rea are absolute musts. I repeat, absolute musts in capital.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be working on them. And John said to me a few days ago, he was like, oh, them stools in the kitchen are getting a bit old, we need to get them changed. I said, don't you dare touch them stools, because I sit on them stools to do my artwork, and if I get a different stool, I don't want to end up where I can't sit the same. I've said to him, if you replace them, I'll be keeping one in the shed, and I'll be getting it out every time.
Yeah, do you know what? At my dressing gown, right, I'm looking at it, is a woman's, and it's what it is. I stole it off Shirley about 15 years ago because it was so comfortable, and every year she goes to me, do you want a dressing gown? I buy it, and I'm like, no, because I like that, and no one sees me. It's just a big pink one, but I stole it off the wife, and it's like, it's just like I've never been it. Do you know what I mean? And I totally get that. Do you know what I mean? So you just go with being comfortable. And Alex Reid, can I just ask, what song did you have? Oh, do you know Alex written his own song, don't you?
I didn't know, but if you'd have told me this before I started it, Jamie, I could have had it on.
I've just remembered. I'll send you it. Now, what song did you play last night?
So I've been listening to Ed Sheeran. He sings a song with Luke Combs. Oh God, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it.
Is there any possible way you can change it or not? Because this is Alex singing.
Yeah, I can do. I've never really changed my song before, but I can certainly give it a go. I can't see why it would make a difference. It's just, I always think if I change the song, it might change the way I feel about, like, the...
But it's Alex's voice, so I think it would only enhance the picture, surely.
I think it would work. It's not that I'm saying it would change anything. I just think it.
And when you do Brian Clough's, you've got to use. So his favourite song was. Let me think. Frank Sinatra. He loved Frank Sinatra as "My Kind of Town, Chicago." I'll send you that in a minute.
Yeah.
And then of course Chris Rea's. You've got to just use "Driving Home for Christmas."
Of course, that goes without saying, that one.
Yeah. But Nat, do you know what, mate? It's been an absolute pleasure. So I'll always be here to support your stuff, mate. And anyone who's about, get over to Nat. Always a pleasure, always a privilege chatting to her. Highly, supremely talented person from Middlesbrough. There's not many of them about. You know, we kind of produce the odd villain and head the ball nutcase, and I don't know, kind of. It's had so many bad. Well, at the minute it is classed. So I did a book in 2018, which was the Duffy book, and it was the capital of knife crime that year, 2018, and it was classed as the most violent place in Britain to live about 4 months ago.
Wow.
That's from a poll. That's not me making up. That's actually statistics from.
On the police show that's on the moment.
Yeah.
That's been saying it on there as well. You don't realise.
No. You do. Do you know what? Considering I spent so much time in Brixton and Mile End and Stepney, Whitechapel, the last couple of years, I am more extra vigilant in Middlesbrough than in any of them places. It just oozes violence. It's just.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that I'm kind of well known and not everyone's covered as well. But yeah, do you know what? You've got to laugh. But Nat, always a pleasure, love. I'll let you get off, and we'll keep in touch, love. And thank you, everyone listening. Look out for part 2 coming in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Nat. God bless.
Everyone listening. Thank you. Bye.